Here's a special important message.
Hello, good tidings to you and your kin. Happy Christmas. It's December as we're recording this. Welcome to episode 6 of We Are the Road Crew. My name is Stephen Hill. I'm your host for the show, as ever. Hope you're getting in a festive mood. I wish I could do something a bit more Christmassy with this intro, but really, there's not really anything to do with Christmas, this podcast. I don't really know why I brought it up. This is more of a podcast about music, live music, and the experiences of people who work in the music industry behind the scenes. Hopefully, you will know that by now if you've been listening to the last 5 episodes, and hopefully you've enjoyed the last 5 episodes, because I think you're going to enjoy this one. My guest this week is Hannah Brodrick, who's a front of house manager and monitor engineer, and is also a founder of an organisation called Women in Live Music, which is a community for women working in live music. If you listen to last week's episode, it's a nice little bit of serendipity here, actually, because we were talking to Steve Carr last week and we were chatting about the role that women have played in kind of indie and rock and popular music over the last decade, and how the kind of the femininity in the world of rock, which has been always, you know, quite a masculine dominated genre, has increased quite a lot over the years. So I'll be interested to see how Hannah sort of feels about that as you know, obviously last week it's me and two men talking about that, and really it'd be interesting to get some sort of first-hand experience from Hannah to talk about how she feels the industry has changed and if it has evolved and has adapted over the years since she's been doing her thing as a front of house manager and a monitor engineer. She's worked with some incredible acts as well. She's worked with a real plethora of acts. I hope we get to chat about just a few off the top of my head from the list that I've seen of people she's worked with, of people like Raging Speedhorn and All Time Low. Love to see them go on tour together. This isn't on one big tour, obviously. Jonas Policewoman, Rae Jepson, Ben Folds, Goldfinger, Godspeed You, Black Emperor, Cooley Shaker, Imelda May, Noel Gallagher's High Flying Bird. So some really eclectic names, some really big names there, some quite interesting underground bands that I've put in there just because I quite like them and I want to talk about them. We'll be putting all of them to Hannah, putting them all under the microscope and seeing what the different challenges are for working with a band like Raging Speedhorn compared to working with an artist like, say, Rae Jepson. So that should be an interesting chat. Thanks for listening. I think I said that at the start. Please leave a review if you haven't already. We'd really appreciate that. Wherever you listen to your podcasts, you can just shout it out the window if you like. That's fine. But I know these days people like to use social media, so you can find us on Facebook, you can find us on Twitter at Road Crew Pod. And if you want to say anything nice, we'd like to hear it. So please do that. I'll be back at the end after I've spoken to Hannah, which is what I'm going to do right now. Hannah, thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Nice to have you here. How are you? You all right?
Yeah, I'm good.
Good.
Very good, yeah. Thanks.
Good. We should start the chat, like I usually tend to do, by asking you about your first experience of live music. When was it when you were, so what age were you when you kind of got into music, and do you remember your first gig and how that felt being there?
Yeah, so when I was like about 13, 14 years old. So when I was 13, I was really obsessed with Michael Jackson, and basically I just raided my parents' vinyl collection and I just listened to all their music. And my mum was really into soul and funk and stuff, and my dad was really into classic rock. So I like to think I have the sort of best of both kind of thing. But so when I was about 14 years old, I had a band with some friends at school. We just played like classic rock covers and stuff. It was like an all-girl 3-piece, and we were really into Red Hot Chili Peppers. So I think the first gig I went to, which was like a big kind of festival gig, was the Red Hot Chili Peppers in Hyde Park.
That's interesting, that, bringing up the Red Hot Chili Peppers now. I'm going to go straight into my own life. This is my girlfriend's favourite ever gig ever, the Red Hot Chili Peppers at Hyde Park.
Was it the same one?
I think it was, yeah. And she keeps going on about how I would have liked it because they played all the old stuff, and I looked at the set list and I was like, no, they're playing all the stuff from By the Way and all the new stuff at the time. So anyway, that's just a little aside. But how was that, the Red Hot Chili? I mean, it's like you're another person. I've been told so many times that this gig was like the greatest gig of all time.
It was amazing, like just the energy in the air, you know. It was really overcast, so James Brown was supporting when he came came on. Yeah. It was really, like rainy and stuff. And then when the Chili's came on, like the clouds just parted and this like sunlight came through. And, you could feel this, like, energy in the air. And when they came on, it was just absolutely amazing. And I remember just feeling like I'd never been in a huge crowd of everyone, just singing along to all the songs and stuff. It was just amazing. Like, that gig was... I think it's still up there in one of the top, 10 gigs I've ever been to. And that was just, like, 14. Wow. So, yeah.
I think it's something you always do remember and have that thing, that kind of a little bit... I think people who get into music a lot will have that sort of epiphany at one of the first shows they go to, where you'll see something that makes you go, God, this is really, really special. And by all accounts, that Red Hot Chili Peppers gig was. It's a shame that they've gone on to become.
Let's not talk about.
They've gone on to become.
Let's not talk about that. Yeah.
Are you not a fan anymore?
Not particularly. No.
Yeah. Me neither. Anyway, they were good though, weren't they?
Yeah, when they weren't sober. No, I'm joking. No, that was just a really amazing show. Like all the conditions are right for it to be an amazing show. Yeah.
So, what happened after that? So obviously, you're a kind of. Were you kind of more split down the middle of classic rock and funk? Because obviously with Chili Peppers that makes sense. Did you have because people kind of try and find a tribe, don't they, when they're young? They try and find a thing that they're really into. What would you say? Were you split right down the middle, or were you airing more to
I was more towards
side?
Rock, yeah. So I was listening to a lot of Led Zeppelin, and then soon after that I got quite into heavy metal. Yeah. So more like Iron Maiden, Motorhead, Saxon, that kind of thing. So I think the next gig I went to after that was a Motorhead gig where Saxon played as well at the Hammersmith Apollo.
That is some leap.
Yeah, when my dad came to me for both shows.
That's amazing. Motorhead, obviously our podcast is named after a Motorhead song.
Yeah.
And they were a sort of ferociously loud live band. How was seeing Lemmy and co? What year would that have been?
I think that was still 2014 actually.
Right, okay.
Yeah. So soon after that Chili's gig I went to go see them. It was so loud. I remember it just being like incredibly loud. And they had, this huge airplane as part of their stage set.
The bomber.
The bomber. Yeah. Yeah, it was amazing. I just remember coming home and my ears were like ringing, like, wow, that's just like incredible. Such a contrast, to other live, music experiences I'd had. So
yeah.
What
was the point came where you actually felt like it was something that you might want to try and maneuver your way into as a job? Did that happen by design or by accident?
I think kind of by accident actually, because I remember going to gigs and I didn't really know what a sound engineer was. I just thought that bands played and the sound just came out of the speakers, and I never really thought about the process of it. But when I was at college and stuff, I was studying music technology, and I guess when I went to university I had a tutor who was front of house for various bands, and it was only kind of then that I think it was Depeche Mode, front of house engineer, and it's only then where I kind of realised that there's actually engineers who do the live sound of things, and it's not all just studio production or being a producer and stuff. So it was about then that I realised that was a kind of option, I guess. Yeah, but I had no idea before then, because people who do live sound shows are always kind of in the dark, out of the way. You're never really going to see them unless you look for them. So. Yeah.
So how did you go about, once that kind of window of opportunity was sort of open to you, how did you kind of, or what happened next to kind of get you into that world?
So after I left university, I only did like a little bit of live sound stuff. At uni. It was mostly studio based, but I realised that I didn't really want to be stuck in a studio for kind of hours on end, so I was sort of searching for my place, and I was still applying for studio opportunities and things like that, but nothing came of it. So I started volunteering for local festivals and gigs in my town, and just kind of working for free on the door or trying to help out on stage, and learning as much as I could about live sound basically. And it was like then that I realised that was my place that there was no other job that I wanted to do, and it was just I wanted to be a live sound engineer, basically.
Yeah. How easy is it to pick that up? I mean, I think it's something we were talking on our guest last week, Steve Carr, that we had on. He also does sound. He said to me, I think his quote was, "My passion is sound." I know for a lot of people who listen to music, like I say, the idea of actually being able to separate sounds and actually pick out what sounds good and what doesn't, and knowing how to make music translate from kind of individual instruments into a sort of cohesive part feels, I mean, to me, I like to think of myself as quite a serious music fan, but at the same time that feels like quite a daunting thing to try and undertake. How quickly did you pick that up, and do you feel like that's something that you're kind of you just have an instinct for, or can you learn those kind of skills and talents?
No, I think I definitely learned. I remember that the first few gigs I did, I was absolutely terrified, like completely terrified, because not only do you have to do, that whole understanding about how a mixing process works, but you also have to know the equipment you're working with. So, you have maybe a different desk every night. So you might have one mixing desk this night and a different one the other night, and you won't know how to use that one. So it's like, not only do you know how, have to know or have to trust your instincts of how to make a band sound good, but you also have to know how to work the equipment. So yeah, I remember it was, I mean, even now I sometimes get scared of gigs, it's never really gone away, that kind of fear of, oh God, it always happens somehow. But yeah, it's not the same thing every night. Like, you can't just apply one rule to everything. It's
I suppose as well, obviously different bands sound different, but so many things can go wrong, so many things
it's just problem solving the whole time, basically.
That sounds terrifying when you put it like that. When you put it like that, it sounds
but
really
I always say to people, like, if it scares you, then it's good, because it means you're going to progress. Like, if things got, if I got complacent, if I thought things, it doesn't matter anymore, then I don't know why I do, really.
Yeah, sure. So, at what point did you actually kind of get into the music industry and it started to feel like... Because, I mean, I imagine you said initially, like, kind of turning up to places and helping out with sound and stuff, that's more of a vocation than an actual employment.
It's a hobby.
Hobby, yeah. At what point did you get sort of through the door and actually start to feel like you were... a member of, this was a job that you're a member of, someone who works within the music industry?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's quite funny, actually. Like, so a friend of mine, he was doing lighting at the Brighton Fringe Festival for some cabaret thing, and he had to go up to Edinburgh or something to do an interview, and he said, "Oh, can you cover me for this?" And I was like, "Well, I don't know how to do lights." But I said yes anyway, because that's what you have to do. And I remember it's like staying up all night reading this lighting manual, kind of trying to figure out how to do this desk, and it was a bit of a disaster, but it worked. And the production manager of this company came up to me afterwards, and he wanted to know who I was and everything, and he said, "What are you doing next week?" And I was like, "Well, nothing." And he said, "Do you want to come and work for me?" And I was like, "Yeah." I didn't really know what I was signing myself up for, but it turned out that was a major production company in Brighton at the time. And from there, I started working with them in the warehouse and on gigs, and I started mixing small shows. And after that, I started working for the Brighton Dome. And actually, I think the first show they put me on was some Spanish band, which was like quite complex, really, but it just threw me in at the deep end, and I just had to sort of make it work. And then after I did a lot there, I started working for couriering companies, and then I started working in London, and kind of... I don't know, the rest is history, really. Yeah. Wow. Once I got to London, it was just like, that was it. Yeah. Just,
I guess, the more people you know, the more the opportunities arise. That's kind of, true of everything in the entertainment world, I think, isn't it, really?
Yeah, and I did a course with Britannia Row in London, who are a major production company who, do all sorts from Iron Maiden to Robbie Williams and stuff. And once I started working for them and starting on, getting on bigger gigs and stuff, the learning curve just like shot straight up.
So what was the first big tour that you undertook where you actually thought, wow, okay, I'm on this now. I'm doing sound, I'm helping out to create this show. Was there one where you were like, wow, this is kind of a big deal?
Yeah, I think it was Noel Gallagher. Noel Gallagher's High Flying Birds.
That's pretty big.
It was big. It was like my first big stadium show. I was there originally kind of as an RF tech, but I sort of helped out on monitors and stuff. And yeah, it was huge. You know, that I really learnt a lot on that tour. Not just, you know, technical abilities, but actually how to be on tour, like, you know, tour bus etiquette, all of that kind of stuff as well, which is important.
Did you get a chance to hang out with Noel much?
So, I don't know if I should say this.
You should. If you think that, then I'm going to say you definitely should.
So I met him once, purely by accident. So I was the RF tech, and he had a big choir on his tour. And I remember like trying to find the dressing room where the choir was, because they had this huge tray of radio mics. They were all on wireless radio headsets and in-ear monitors. And I accidentally walked into his dressing room, and he was just standing in the middle of the dressing room. Like randomly, I don't know what he was doing even to this day, but he just turned around and he just stared me straight out of the room like, who are you, kind of thing. So I just sort of backed out, and that was the only interaction I had with him on that tour, because, you know, it was huge. Like,
yeah,
I wouldn't, you know, I wouldn't have any reason to talk to him. He probably didn't know who I was, so it was like, yeah, quite scary actually.
That sounds absolutely terrifying.
It was really intimidating.
I always preferred Liam myself, so, you know. Noel Gallagher's High Flying, but I mean, again, I was going to ask you how, when you talk about choirs and stadium shows, I mean, what kind of gigs do you prefer to try and help with? And, like, what's the sort of ideal show for you? A smaller gig? Or, because, I mean, those big gigs, I think, often people complain about the sound in stadiums and festival stage, because I think they're probably a bit more of a challenge, I would imagine. I don't know, you know better than me.
Actually, I don't think so. I think the higher up you get, the easier it is, and actually the more boring it gets, because you're just loading in the same equipment every day, you're flying the same PA, you know, it's the same set list, it's very much routine and becomes boring, actually. I prefer the smaller gigs, you know, where you turn up to a venue, you have no idea what equipment you're going to get. It's all very exciting, and, you know, you don't know who's going to turn up, do anything like that. Those are the real gigs. And when you're working with smaller bands as well, you have much more of a kind of personal relationship with them, and you can talk more about them, you know, how they want it to sound and stuff. If
you walk into their dressing room, they don't just stare at you.
Well, there's no dressing room, or if there is, you're in it with them, you know. So I much prefer the smaller gigs. It's more intimate. Yeah.
Well, I was going to ask you about a few of the different artists that you have worked with, and just looking on the sort of list that I found online of people you've worked with, it's a very eclectic list of artists that you've worked with in your career. That must be quite exciting, I'd imagine. I can't imagine too many people get to, I mean, I think I said it in the intro, Rae Jepson and Raging Speedhorn. That's a pretty odd mix. How exciting is it for you to kind of dip your toe into as many different genres as possible?
I love it, because you're always learning new things, and the people you meet, you know, I just love meeting different people from different walks of life, from different places around the world. I don't really have a problem with adapting to genres. Like, I can do metal, and I can do pop, and, you know, I don't find any difficulty switching between. I think it helps when you're into so many different parts of music. You can respect their kind of what they want things to sound like. So it's not a problem, you know. If I only listened to one genre of music, maybe I'd find it difficult to relate to, say, pop or, you know, something. But I think understanding artists and what they want you to kind of bring for them is a really good quality.
How similar people are Rae Jepson and the members of Raging Speedhorn?
Well, so that Raging Speedhorn gang was a bit of a, I don't know. It was. They're
animals, by the way.
Yeah.
You might not want to say it. I'm going to say it. Raging Speedhorn are drunken animals. My band played with them back when they first started out. They are absolute tearaways, and I'm sure they would admit it themselves, but they are absolute tearaways.
So I mixed with them on a festival at Sonosphere, whenever it was, 2000, don't know,
14?
No, way.
Right. 11?
Well, I don't know, actually. It might have been 2014. And yeah, I mean, I might not have been entirely sober as well, because I wasn't getting paid for that job. It was just there to kind of help out. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I've always got on with guys in metal bands. I'm pretty rock and roll myself, so it's fine. And Kylie Rae Jepson, she was just lovely. I think a lot of pop artists, successful pop artists, get, kind of told by management to be nice to the sound people. So they're always quite lovely, actually. I've never really had to deal with any major divas. Yeah.
We've had a couple of people on here who've talked about various divas before, and it sounds like it can be quite difficult if you get the wrong one, but it sounds like you've obviously been a bit lucky with the ones.
Yeah, and I think, I don't know, I'm quite empathetic. Like, I think if someone comes to me with an attitude, I can talk them out of it a little bit. Like, I'm not a very confrontational person, so if there's someone's being difficult, I just kind of kill them with kindness, and we'll have a great show. So that's the way to do it.
That would be the way to do it. I was going to ask you about a few other of the artists that you have worked with. I was going to start with Ben Folds. I love Ben Folds. I absolutely love him. But was this Ben Folds as just the piano and his voice? It feels like that would be quite a fairly easy thing to capture, but then it's so intimate that, I guess just a mic and a piano, you think, that couldn't be too hard to get the sound right for. But also, he's got to have that kind of level of intimacy that will make his music work. What's he like, and how were those shows, and what are the challenges of kind of getting the sound right for someone like Ben Folds?
So that was actually a really interesting gig, and it's interesting that you brought it up as well, because I did that gig probably just down the road from here at HMV 363. Does it still exist? I don't know. Anyway, yeah, RIP if it doesn't. But so they had a little venue upstairs from the big HMV, just down Bond Street. And we used to do a lot of album launches there, and I would mix the shows on this big, nice, analog board with all this outboard gear and stuff. And and he came in there actually not to do a show, but to do a recording, which was quite strange, because that's the only time I ever did that kind of show there. Yeah. So he was nice. He was very professional, very American. And yeah, it was more of a challenge of making sure the recording was good. So my outputs from the desk were a good level for the recording to take place. And it was actually very chilled out. But yeah, he was very, very much a muso. Yeah. It was interesting. But it wasn't a tour. It was just a one show with him. And
he's great. Like, I mean, I was only asking because I'm a massive.
No, he's lovely.
Fan.
Yeah.
But there's kind of going from All Time Low to Godspeed You, Black Emperor. To sort of flag up the eclectic nature of what you do. I mean, I've seen Godspeed You, Black Emperor, and they're one of the loudest. I mean, we're talking about Motorhead before. Godspeed You, Black Emperor might be louder, so loud, and so can be, the quiet parts. Them and Mogwai, the quiet parts are so quiet, and the loud parts are so loud.
I love post rock.
Do you? You're a big fan of post rock.
Yeah.
So that must be quite exciting to get a band like Godspeed, who are, one of the top ones of those bands.
But they're so easy. Like, that gig was so easy because they're all so pro. They all know exactly how they want their instruments to sound. Honestly, you don't have to do anything crazy like you do for some other artists, like, talking about, I was doing monitors for them, so talking about, panning things or special effects and stuff. They just want to hear what they're playing, and they all sit in like a little circle, It's very intimate, like on the stage for them. So actually, that wasn't a difficult job at all, like to do them. All Time Low were a bit, I don't know, more.
Well, I was going to ask you about the audience, because you get a post-rock audience. To me, are very subdued and quite serious and quite
really respectful
of the music for the most part. Yeah. And then I'm not saying that All Time Low fans aren't respectful of the music or the band, but it's a different sort of reaction. And I wondered how you have to kind of factor in an audience reaction to what the people are hearing. I mean, I'm trying to stop short of going, All Time Low fans don't really care what All Time Low sound like. They're too busy screaming over the top of them, aren't they?
I mean, yeah. Do you know the weirdest thing was, like, when I did that All Time Low gig, like, all the fans sat down on the floor in front of the PA.
Right.
I don't know why, but they all just sat on the floor, all of them. And I was like, do I need to drop the PA? Like, do I need to, point the speakers down because they're just going to sit there? Or is that, apparently it's a thing? I don't know. But yeah, the demographic, the people they appeal to were, they're just 14, 15-year-old girls, basically. Who do scream. And it's more of the experience of just seeing the members, rather than the sound, even though I always want the sound to sound good. But it's almost like a secondary aspect of going to see them, because all they care about is just seeing them and then hopefully meeting them after the show. But yeah, a Godspeed crowd is going to be people who, audiophiles, face it, who are going to really care about the sound. So yeah.
Do you switch off a bit when? I mean, I'm not. Obviously, you've got to be professional at all points. But being a kind of post rock fan, is there a point where you're doing All Time Low where you're like, this should be fairly easy to get this right, because is there too much professional pride? I can't
switch off. It's not professional pride. I just can't switch off. Even when I go to see bands these days, it's a kind of a constant. You're just thinking about everything all the time. Yeah, I wish I could switch it off, because sometimes when I see bands now that I like and they're not so, doesn't sound so great, I'm a bit like, it kind of ruins it all, really.
You feel like walking into the desk and sort of going, come on, man.
I'd never do that.
Okay.
No, people do that to me, but I would never do that.
Really?
It's like a golden rule of sound engineering that you don't do that.
Right. Well, here's the thing that I wanted to talk to you about as well also is you are founder of an organisation called Women in Live Music.
Yeah.
And that is a community for women working in live music. Tell us a little bit about how that got started and why you decided and felt that you wanted to start that organisation.
So when I started out in the music industry, I didn't have any role models, and I actually thought that, this is really sad actually, but I thought that biologically women just weren't cut out to be sound engineers, because there was something technical missing in her brain or something, because there just weren't any, I didn't know of any female sound engineers. And eventually I found this organisation called Sound Girls, which was run by two women, and one of them was the monitor engineer for Pearl Jam. And when I found that, I was suddenly like filled with all this confidence, like, oh wow, so this is awesome woman, like at the top making it, and that kind of changed my mind about everything. And I was like, wow, this is great. And so I started getting involved with Sound Girls, and they're a US organisation. And me and my friend Mally, she's from Denmark, and we were kind of doing things for them, putting on events and things, and we started getting, growing. And we thought, let's just start our own thing. But rather than make it sound-based, let's make it industry-based. Because I always feel like, I have more in common with maybe like a lighting designer or a tour manager than I do with a sound recordist or a theatre sound designer.
Yeah.
So we decided to make this organisation called Women in Live Music, which is European-based organisation for women mainly who are starting out in the industry and want some role models, want some support, job opportunities and things like that. And quickly we gathered this, huge kind of group of women, and a lot of them who didn't even know each other, but it just brought everyone together. And it's really nice, to kind of, because I never worked with women, like we're about 5 to 10% of the live music industry.
Yeah.
So it's rare that I ever get to meet any of them, but building this community, you soon made friends with people, and it's just great, really. And I'm so glad I did it.
Yeah. I was looking on your website actually, and I saw one of the things that was really cool is you have kind of an award ceremony and meetups in certain places that people can go and just kind of hang out and actually get to know each other, and I guess kind of swap stories and like you say, get a chance to sort of actually meet people who are like-minded and like them. I think that's like, that's amazing. That's like a really important thing for people to be able to feel like, you know, they're not, like you say, you don't get a chance to meet many women in your profession, and then getting the chance to meet them will probably, I don't know, you would be able to tell me, will make you feel like, well, you know, there's nothing unusual about this. Whereas I guess in your day-to-day life, if you're on a tour bus and you're the only woman, you might kind of go, am I unusual in this industry?
Yeah.
Which I know statistically, you're, as you're saying, it's not as big a split as you would like, but it must be cool to kind of actually meet those people and feel vindicated that that you're doing the things that you're doing, you know?
Yeah, and I think I believe in you can't be what you can't see as well.
Yeah.
So I like to meet as many women as possible to kind of show them that, you know, I'm here, I'm doing it, so you can too. You know, give them a little confidence boost, because often that's all it takes for someone to kind of realise in themselves that, yeah, they can do this, and they can, you know, be a sound engineer or a tour manager or whatever, and it's not down to their gender. Yeah.
Was there something, I mean, I was quite interested in what you said a minute ago regarding you felt like genetically you weren't made to do sound, like what you kind of thought early on. I mean, that feels like a really quite a depressing thing to, if you're that passionate about music, but to feel like, you know, I can't do this. Like, how hard and how big a barrier was that to kind of, for you to get over, and what was it that made you kind of, do you remember an exact moment where you sort of thought, no, actually that is not true?
Yeah, it was really hard. I mean, even in school, I remember my music teacher sort of, when I said I wanted to go to a different college to do music technology, it kind of was like, laughed at me, and like, you know, it was like a DOS subject or something. Oh, you know, you'd be better at English or psychology or something, you know, because women don't do these technical manual jobs or something. So I think it really is stemmed from, you know, being in school and the people you see around you, and, you know, the stereotypes and stuff. And I can't remember the second part to your question.
Well, I was going to say, was there
when was the point?
Yeah, was there a point that it sort of changed?
To be honest, it was probably after finding Sound Girls and meeting other women. I remember being at Brighton Dome, and for the first time, a woman came in, and she was mixing for a house for this artist called Planning to Rock.
Right.
And I was just like in awe of her. I was like, wow, there's another girl here, and that's so cool. And I just wanted to like be her best friend, you know. It was just, and you know, and she was young as well, so it kind of, that gave me the confidence really to I don't know, it was all about like seeing other people do it.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
What about I mean, without, I suppose we are going to go into it really, but the sort of the stereotype of what sort of rock and guitar music and metal and punk and alternative music and everything, it has always been quite a masculine genre over the years. Did you have a lot of sort of pushback when you sort of first started doing it? I mean, and how much has that changed, or has it changed from your experience, having done this for a few years now? Yeah,
I mean, I had, you know, people obviously doubt me on my abilities purely, you know, without even talking to me, like walk into a venue and I'd be asked, oh, you know, where are you going? Who are you? Sort of thing. Or like, well, I'm come to do the sound, and like, really, you know, sort of thing. But I find like metal and rock, especially because I was a big part of that community anyway, going to see shows in London, I never really felt like that was the problem. It was actually more the rap, hip-hop side of things that I really found uncomfortable.
Okay.
I was doing front of house for a hip-hop band at a venue in London, and actually one of them, when I was clearing the stage, made a really horrible comment towards me.
One of the actual bands?
Yeah. And they got actually kicked out, and they told that they couldn't come back to the venue again and play again, which is really nice.
Yeah, that's good.
That the venue did that. But I remember thinking at the time, like, oh God, like I don't want to cause a scene. I just want to do my job.
Yeah.
You know, but that's where I found the problem. It's not in rock and metal.
Yeah.
I've actually found that kind of scene quite accepting.
Yeah.
Weirdly enough.
Yeah, well, it's not that weird. I guess it's kind of, you know, I'm really glad to sort of hear that. I mean, I've seen and heard kind of, I think people have conflicting and different experiences that they've had, and from speaking to people. I mean, I saw a tweet about a week ago actually from a girl who was, I think she was doing guitar tech for the band Black Tongue. I don't know if you know that band, but they're like a sort of metal band, and she was stood by the side of the stage, and a photographer told her and 6 or 7 other guys stood by the side of the stage, and this photographer, who wasn't even working for the band, just a sort of freelance photographer, told her to get out of the way and get off the stage and get out of his shot, but didn't say it to any of the other guys. And she was like, I'm the guitar tech and these are just their mates. Like, that kind of assumption is pretty disgusting, really.
I think a lot of older people still have, views about women who hang out at shows. And, it's out of the realms of possibility that they're actually working there or something. Because back in their day, women at shows were only there for one thing, I guess. But times have changed, and,
Yeah. And how much have times changed? I mean, do you feel like there's a swell of people getting it? Because, I mean, one of the things that I think, obviously, there's been a lot of amazing female musicians and a lot of albums that have been made by female artists, really kind of diverse, amazing collection of records made by women over the last few years that have been some of the most unique and brilliant records, particularly in rock and metal, which is obviously a good thing for our scene. Do you think that's starting to translate throughout the entirety of, from people working with the bands, people working with labels, people doing journalism and everything? Do you kind of feel like there is a change happening, and that we might at some point get a 50-50, this sort of 50-50 split that people are keen to have?
Yeah, I think so. It's definitely going that way. I've noticed in the last 5 years. Some artists now are asking for all-female crew, for example. There's a lot more, there's a lot more people wanting girls on tours, whereas I don't think that was really the case before. I think it's changing. I'm seeing more girls on, coming through venues I work with on tour and stuff. I think it's getting there. I don't know if it'll ever be 50-50 in my lifetime. I'm not sure. Maybe it will. We're in a time of change anyway, regardless of the music industry. So it will be interesting to see how it goes, really. Yeah.
I guess the 50-50, I mean, I always think, without, being a man, it's quite difficult for me to articulate in a way that, it doesn't sound patronising or whatever. But I think when people talk about, I'm actually quite interested to get your thoughts on this. When people talk about festival bills that have to have a certain percentage of women on there, I often wonder if that would have put a little thing in the back of your head where you think, am I being asked on here because I'm filling a quota or ticking a box, or am I being asked on here because of the quality of my work? And I guess anybody, regardless of their gender or their sort of sexual persuasion or their race, they just want to be able to do their job based on the fact that they are good at their job, Yeah, I mean, I think I probably get asked to do jobs sometimes, or some of the jobs I've been asked to do, not directly, but probably because I'm a woman. I'm not going to deny that. I don't see why I shouldn't use that to my advantage, though, I guess. I think, to be honest, from my experience, being a woman in the industry has been a plus more than a negative, because people remember you. Yeah.
I just think, it's always been an advantage for me, basically. But I do feel like, of course, I don't want to be asked to do a job because of my gender. I want to be asked to do a job because of my, skill set. But, both is work and money and paying your rent at the end of the day. So can't complain.
So what kind of ambition do you have for the future of your career? Like, where would be the ultimate end goal for what you do? Are there any bands that you have a bucket list on that you desperately would wish to sort of get that sound just right for that band? Is there one band that you've seen and you've gone, I could really make that band sound great?
I feel like I've already ticked off so many bucket list things. I would really love to tour America with a band I love. I don't know who that band would be. I don't have a a band in mind. I don't think it would be a big band, because I think, you know, it wouldn't be so special. It would have to be something like small. I'd love to tour America, and I would love to be in a place where I could just tour all the time and not, you know, have to live in London and do all the other venue work that I have to do. Really, that would be the ultimate goal. But I've never been one of these people who have like a 5-year plan, or, you know, this has to happen and stuff. I've always just done what makes me happy, and that's got me to great places. So yeah.
Cool. Well, the last thing we always ask on the show is a question regarding your best ever day on a job and your worst ever day on a job. Can you think of one gig or one show where you were like, this is it, this is the utopia that I dreamed of, and then one day where you were like, I just wish I worked in Starbucks or whatever?
God. I have to think now. I can give you my worst one first.
Go for it, yeah.
Right, Slam Dunk Festival.
2000. 2000.
I don't know. I'm trying to remember which year it was. Oh God, probably 2016, 17 or something.
Okay, so that would have been the old 3-day Slam Dunk.
Yeah, the old one.
At the Hatfield University, which is the most bizarre.
Please don't tell me you were there and you saw my meltdown.
Definitely. Well, I don't know if I saw your meltdown, but I saw a lot of people get melting down. I also saw a lot of queues, and I also thought, what an odd place to do a festival, a day of a festival. So
that's actually my old university. So
right.
That's the reason I was there. Oh my God, horrible. So I was there on the, I want to say, Jägermeister stage. So one in the main auditorium, basically, in the Forum. And
I know that stage, yeah.
Yeah. Basically, I had a whole day, I was just doing front of house, and I had a whole day of bands turning up with their own front of house engineer. So I was just sort of babysitting and making sure they were okay and patching everything for them. And then I think it came to, I want to say Zebrahead, some kind of band like that.
They play every single year.
I know they do play every single year.
So it would definitely be Zebrahead.
It was probably being Zebra, yeah. And they're nice guys, actually. But yeah, and I just got to the desk and I started setting up, and the smoke alarms went off in the venue because someone in the crowd had obviously lit a cigarette or something. Right. And all the power just shut off and then came back on. But the surge of the power coming on just killed the stage rack, which is what the kind of the desk brain basically of my mixing console, and I couldn't get any inputs coming from stage, and it was like, you know, the band had started sound checking with monitors, and I had nothing coming through on my desk, and I was all on my own. I didn't, and this crowd was like, I couldn't even get to stage because there was so many people in the way. Yeah. So I was sort of freaking out, and I was like, oh, what do I do? Okay, so I have to rip out all the analog lines from the stage box and put them into the back of the console. And I was like, oh no, that doesn't work because I need, phantom power. I don't have enough input. So I was like, I don't know what to do. And by this point, the whole crowd had actually turned around and started like booing at me, like booing in my face. Oh, and I just wanted to die. I was so stressed. I think I came out in a rash. And in the end, like I rang the production manager for the festival, and I was like, okay, you need to come down here right now because it's like all going wrong. And I can't even remember who the headliner was. Like, it might have been like Enter Shikari or something like that. And I was like, this is over. Like, if this doesn't work, what are we going to do? We have to get another desk down or something. And he came over, and together we were like, stressing and sweating and everything. And he managed to find this like a hard reset switch in the back of this stage box. Right. And switch it on, and then suddenly everything just came back to life. Like, obviously that just reset the power supply, I don't know what it was. And then, we were so behind by that point, I just had to like fade us up and go, like, and just make it work. And the first song sounded absolutely horrific, but after then it was okay.
It was Zebrahead, to be fair. So,
But it's just sod's law, the one, band that I had to mix that day and really, take care of and stuff. It just completely messed up.
That's the audience's fault there. Someone was being naughty.
It was, but you can't turn around and tell an audience that, oh, it's not my fault. It's like,
well, I mean, I don't know if you heard about this, but I mean, you might have some thoughts on this anyway. This is a little bit of a tangent.
You're going to talk about Machine Head?
I was going to talk about Machine Head. Rob Flynn from Machine Head said that if any of us see any of their fans throwing a beer anywhere, we have to punch him in the face. That is what he said. He was really angry. And that gig, for those of you listening who aren't aware of this scenario, basically Machine Head were like 20 minutes from the end of their set at Brixton a couple of weeks ago, and someone threw a whole pint of beer from the back of the crowd onto the mixing desk, and everything went out, and it ended up being a big half an hour long delay. And
but their audio crew smashed it. Like, they had to run everything from monitors. Like, that's just insane. Like, on a walkie-talkie, the front of house engineer like telling the monitor engineer like tips on, like, just incredible. But that's the thing. Like, we always make it work somehow. Like, the gig always happens. Like, these things might happen, that throw us, but we always make it work somehow.
That's a real dick move, though, isn't it?
It's just, what a nightmare. Some venues, they even have like a plastic screen that comes over just to stop that from happening.
I think Brixton Academy should invest in one of those, because there was that and Gajira a couple of weeks before, where the whole light show went out because someone threw a pint of beer over it as well. So
just stop throwing beers.
Stop lighting cigarettes. Stop making it difficult for these people to do their job. So that was the worst. I mean, to be honest, when you said worst day, you had me at I had to do sound for Zebrahead. To be honest, that was enough for me. That sounds like the worst day anyone's ever had at work. What about the best, though? Let's close it out on the absolute greatest day.
Okay, so a band I work for, PG.Lost, got asked to support Deftones at Royal Festival Hall.
Amazing.
Which was such an incredible experience. They were actually invited by Robert Smith from The Cure.
How was it, that show?
It was so incredible. Like,
that whole week was...
I just, when you have like all the whole week was incredible.
Just so good.
So we'd done a show before anyway, I think in a smaller venue, which was their own show, and then we'd also done the British Summertime thing as well. So it was just a great week, and the weather was great and everything. But yeah, I mean, I've been a massive fan of Deftones, so I was like super psyched that we got to play with them, and and I love mixing this band anyway, but just having all the gear in that hall, like a Deftones size PA, and getting to just rag it completely. I had like light fittings falling out of the ceiling just from like the sheer like sub low end vibration. It was just incredible. And then my tutor at Brit Row, one of my kind of main role models, came to the show as well to see it, and he said it sounded great. So I was just made, like, absolutely. That
is such a, I mean, again, we haven't really spoken that much about venues, but there are certain venues where the acoustics are so incredible. I think Royal Festival Hall, I went to 3 gigs that week for that Robert Smith Meltdown Festival. I saw Deftones, who were amazing. I saw Manic Street Preachers, who were amazing as well.
Did you see PG.Lost then, the band before?
I saw a little bit of them. I think I turned
that was
up.
Me.
Oh, right, okay. Well, good. And I saw, I think, Nine Inch Nails at Royal Festival was probably the best gig I've ever been to.
I didn't see that one.
It was unbelievable. And I saw the Talk tribute to Mark Hollis last week, and again, just sounded so perfect. So you must be like a kid in a sweet shop getting to just go into that amazing space. Is that one of the best venues you've done the sound at?
Yeah, I mean, I love that venue, and also there's smaller venues that sound great to me. Like, I think there's a big misconception that bigger is better. Like, often bigger isn't better. Like, if you go somewhere like Royal Albert Hall, for example, it always sounds horrible in there. Like, but that's really? I hate it.
Do you?
Yeah, because it's just, there's no definition. It's just constant reverb. Well, maybe you've been to some lucky gigs. I don't know. I've never enjoyed a gig there. Okay. But yeah, I feel like it just really depends a lot on the acoustics, on the system. There's a tiny little venue in Dalston called Birthdays. And
that is so small.
Yeah, like really tiny. And the PA
in
there is Function One stuff. It's not like high end or anything. It's not like Ed Acoustics or DMV, but they've just managed to tune it, and it sounds amazing. And it's just like, I love going there because it always sounds great.
Well, I'm glad you ended on. So we've deviated slightly from the Deftones ending, but yes, that Deftones gig was good. Well done for getting involved in that. That's amazing. But yeah, that's where we'll leave it. Hannah, thanks very much for chatting to us. We much appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you.
And continue to do what you do. Do you want to give a plug to anything?
Yeah, check out womeninlivemusic.eu if you're a woman interested in the live music industry, or even if you're a guy. We don't discriminate. So yeah. All
right, good. All right, lovely. Well, I appreciate you talking to us, Hannah, and see you soon.
Cheers.
All right, there you go. Hope you enjoyed that chat with Hannah. That's Hannah Brodrick, who, as I mentioned during the chat and in my intro, is the founder of Women in Live Music, which obviously, as we talked about, is a great thing. It's a really positive thing. She's doing, having a really positive impact on the community around her and helping to bring people together, which is what music, and especially live music, obviously is all about. So I hope you enjoyed that chat. I want to say a big thanks to Hannah for coming in and talking to us and sharing her experiences with, like I said at the start, just an amazing plethora of bands, loads and loads of different acts and artists that she's worked with. I get pretty jealous when I hear people talking about getting to work with so many different artists, just getting to experience so much different live music. I think that's really, really cool. So cheers, Hannah. I appreciate you coming on. We'll be back soon with another episode. Thanks very much for listening once again. As I said at the start, please leave a review. Please say something nice. Tell a friend. Shout it out. Even if you just open the window up and go, "Oi, listen to We Are the Road Crew podcast," and someone walking past happens to hear it, I'll take that. I'll take that all day long. Also, probably if you're going to do that or say something nice on social media, I'll probably choose the latter. Go for the social media thing. As I mentioned before, we're on Facebook. We are also on Twitter at Road Crew Pod. And as I have said before, if there's anyone who you think would be good on the podcast, just give us a little tweet. Maybe leave a little note on our Facebook page and say, hey, here's a person who've worked with this person. I'd like to hear you chat to them and to get them good stories out, get them juicy tidbits and morsels from whatever artist it is they work with. If you know somebody who you think would be interested on the podcast, then do feel free to shout them out and send them our way. And if you do that, then they may be appearing on an episode at a later date. Of course, that's for the future. And for now, that's the end, isn't it? It's the end. So thanks very much for listening. We'll see you next time.